So welcome everybody. Welcome to this webinar on DecisionBridge Technology. We're really pleased to be launching this. This is our technology that helps people move from a decision to an action and do the whole workflow faster. So thanks for joining us. I'm joined today on this webinar by my colleagues Joel and Miles, who will be helping me with the demos. We're going to talk through 3 case studies that we've done with DecisionBridge Technology, where we've helped customers go from a decision to an action. We'll talk through what we did and the decisions and the actions that it accelerated. So the first example we want to talk about is something called My Important Stuff. So this was a case where people need to easily understand what the actions are on them. People in an operations team are involved in multiple work processes. They have multiple things they need to do, including responding to HSE actions, reviewing work, or raising work requests and getting quotes from people. To understand where those work processes are, they need to go into different systems and maybe log in, see where they are without getting notified. They don't know if they then have an action on them. So how can I get an easy overview of all that's going on currently? What am I responsible for? What actions are on me? And where do I need to, where are the work processes I'm responsible for that I may be waiting on others? So I'm going to hand over to Miles now, and Miles is going to take us through a demo of what we've done to help our customer with that.
Thanks, Murray. Right, I'm just going to get my screen shared. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through sort of the SQL query functions of the Eigen Ingenuity tool. In previous webinars, you've probably seen the KPI. So on the screen here, as you can see, we've got sort of multiple view of the KPI, but this time instead of displaying sort of historian data, we're actually querying the the SQL data tables. So as a user, I can come up here and I can access the SQL Query tool, and I can see that the databases I've got here are sort of the fresh desk one, which we're going to query, which we're going to sort of, this is a dashboard basically giving us an overview of my tickets that I'm responsible for. Enter my user Eigen, and then I can see all the different tables. And then down here as a user, I could enter sort of test queries and sort of build a view that I want to do. But as far as a user, what I've created here is a table. So I'm going to quickly go into the edit this one. So up here you can see I've defined my query. And in this table I want to view the fresh desk tickets for 60 days where the priority is high or medium. And then also a great feature is that, say I look at the ticket column, I've prepared an on-click action which will open a proprietary system to our support management. So if I take this out of edit mode, bring that here. So now if I click on, actually let's go and look at, let's open this one. So this one's now going to open a fresh test ticket, which is great. So when I open this page, I can then access all the tickets that I'm viewing, all from an easy dashboard, and I've created sort of 4 different views for myself to view. And what's great about this is it's fully user configurable, and it's very easy for someone like myself. I'm not a true expert on database queries, but here I'm able to define what I want and view a great dashboard very quickly and easily, and all the information is very high level and I can access everything quickly.
That's great, Miles. Thanks very much. So I'm just going to summarize now what we've talked about there. I'll share my screen back again. Okay, so the key features. So what Miles has just demonstrated there was we were able to speed up the time to identify work processes where our input's needed. We can also identify any work processes that are stuck waiting on others. We were then able to go straight from the summary view right into the system and the very ticket where our action is required. Or we could go and straight away and chase up others. So in the case of the fresh desk ticket, we can go straight to the ticket and write a comment in there or escalate it. So it means we've sped up the time. You no longer just need to go into the system and look in each individual system. There's a summary there from the different systems you go straight in. It's a live interface. It's not replicating the information. It's customizable, so users can configure it themselves and maintain it themselves and change it whenever they like. And we also have the on-click action. So you can configure what happens when you click on the data. It can take you to another place, it can perform an action. And that's one of the key differentiators about DecisionBridge, being able to take the next step. Okay, let's look at the next use case. This is about publishing information for shared awareness. So the objective here is, how can we easily and regularly broadcast important information to all staff? The use case we're going to talk about here is the rapidly changing situation with coronavirus. On an offshore asset, they needed to keep people up to date with the changing situation, new shift patterns, new procedures for how to use the canteen, what to do in the accommodation. These were changing daily. And the challenge is, well, how do we get that information out there? What we did was we've used our screen presenter module that allows people to take information such as a PowerPoint or a website and create a rotating slideshow on common screens. It's all based on a URL that people could just see wherever they were. They could either log in on the intranet and see it, or it could be up in a common area. So I'm going to hand over to Joel now, who's going to take us through a demo of Screen Presenter.
Share my screen now. So I've got Screen Presenter here. So I'll show how it looks. So what we've done here is we've configured Screen Presenter for the things that are important to us. So we follow the price of oil, Brent crude, and that is displaying right now. In a few moments, it will shift to the next screen, which is just a screenshot of one of our brochures. And it will rotate through the different screens that is being configured to show. So here you can see the configuration of the different screens. Some are slides, pictures, some are websites like our Eigen website, and some are other external websites that we're interested in. And so essentially, you can configure to show everybody in your company the things that are important to them, that matter to all. As Murray was explaining in the use case, this can refer to, COVID information that everybody needs to know, HSE information, keep everybody aware of security and safety, corporate announcements. In our case, we're following the price of oil. We're also following exchange rate for Norwegian kroner to Great Britain pound, because it's something that affects our business. And so this is it's very, very easy to configure. You just basically, to configure, you just drop the file that contains the link to what you want to show, and the system will essentially pick it up and go round robin, showing all the information. So if you have any questions at the end, we'll take questions. Stop there.
Okay, thanks, Joel. So what Joel just showed you there was the screen presenter just cycling through a set of screens that the user configures by putting stuff in a folder. The decisions that this helped accelerate was being able to understand the latest COVID-related procedures on an offshore asset. The actions that people could take was to immediately publicize new information. Previously, this had to be emailed. So they would be sending around PowerPoints, each of which is many megabytes daily to people's inboxes. It also meant there was increased adoption of the latest procedures because people could see straight away what they were. There was communal screens outside the canteen, for instance, so the procedures were right there and visible to people. It meant visitors to the platform could very quickly be brought up to speed with the latest information as part of the induction. All they had to do was stand in front of one of the screens for 5 minutes and they'd have seen all the information. It was super easy to use because it took existing PowerPoints and exported them to pictures, which are then just picked up from the folder and displayed in sequence. The duration can be entered into the file name, so there's super simple, lightweight configuration, very easy for people to use. You can add websites in by just putting the URL in a text file, and the URL that Screen Presenter's on can be accessed by anyone internally. Okay, and so as Joel said, please do type any questions you've got in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. Okay, so the last use case I want to describe to you is publishing a weekly KPI report. So the challenge here was, how can we reduce the time it takes for engineers to produce the plant availability report and increase its accuracy? This was a report produced regularly based on information from different systems, extractions of real-time data plus production allocated figures and downtime reports. This had to be combined in Excel and then put into PowerPoint slides. This took time and needed some massaging, and it was easy to make mistakes because of all the copying and pasting. So the question was, how can we make this online at the click of a button? What we'll show you is that not only do we automate the creation of the report, but we also automate the distribution of it afterwards. The distribution is another thing. It's like the hidden time that you lose doing work. You finish the work, but now it needs to be converted into a PDF or a PowerPoint and emailed. And if you have multiple different audiences, which can be the case for, say, an external and an external version, then you need to reformat the report, and that all takes valuable time from expensive resources. So I'm going to hand over to Miles again, who'll talk you through our reporting tool.
Okay, yeah, let me just share my screen again. Okay, here we go. So basically, what I'm going to go through here is our morning report on the demo system. And basically what this does is it's basically a recreation of a lot of the reports that we see on our client system. So the benefit of this report is it's a collection of KPIs that we've seen, and it's also a collection of text inputs that incorporate the data from, say, take, for example, the previous way of doing it is sending out a Word document and then a PowerPoint, whereas this is all combined together. So you've got the user comes along, enters the text, and then also when they set the date up here, it will grab all the data for the report for that date, and then it will be allowed to distribute it out. So with this report, we've got multiple versions. So we've got a head office and an offshore report. And the way it differentiates between the different reports is that in each individual KPI, you can tag the data. So in this instance, we've got head office and offshore. So this report will then, so this KPI here will then be included in both reports. But say, for example, these two, they've only just been tagged with one or the other. So they'll only be sent off in one report. So then if I look in the settings cog, here I can see where I've configured my two reports. So I've got the different titles, the sender name, and then also is the email addresses are included at the bottom. So for example, I've just got myself here, but you could put sort of distributions in there and anyone that you want. And each report is individual, so different reports can be sent to different groups of people. So up here, you can set the date. So for example, if we set that to the 13th, it just grabs the data super fast and then it's stored. And then when you create the report, it will store the page as a flat report without any historical data there, so that when you reload them, it's quick and easy. So then, for example, if I open up a couple of example reports, so here's the head office report that we did this one in June. So as you can see, this contains pretty much all of the KPIs, and then if I open the offshore one, it's only got a limited number just related to that group.
Thanks, Miles. Let me share my screen again and I'll just summarize what we've seen. So what Miles has just shown is that from a single template, we could create multiple different versions of the report, and with a single click, the user was able to generate it for any date. And the versions that were created were flattened so that all the smarts were taken out of the report. The links to the source data were cut so that you'd have a fixed record of what was issued at that time, and it would load quickly. The decisions we accelerated was we accelerated the time taken to do the report, or rather we reduced it by 3 hours a week. For senior resources, that's a very worthwhile amount. That's about 8% of their time in the week now freed up. The report is issued in less time and is a higher quality. Because the template is quality assured. When you press the button, it's completely repeatable. It always does the same thing. And the other benefit is that the resource is now able to have more time to focus on other activities. We've taken away the time they spend doing not really very high value stuff like reformatting Word documents. What we did was we converted a complex Excel and PowerPoint workflow into a single online report. It's very simple to use now, so anyone can run it actually. If that engineer is not available, someone else can hit the button and just do a QA on the results. There is a full history of the previous reports in one place. So no longer do people have to go back in their emails to find the latest or into the file system. It's all online if they want to see it. And we also have version control of the template. So people can edit the template when they want, but if there's anything wrong, you can roll back to a previous version very easily. Again, something very difficult to do with Excel, and you can easily lose track of what's the correct one to be using. So that concludes the use cases we wanted to share with you today. I hope you found that useful. We've now got 13 minutes left. If anyone has any questions, we'd be delighted to talk through anything of this in more detail. Please just write your questions in the chat window, and one of us will do our best to answer them. So has anyone got any questions on any more details on the examples we've given, or any thoughts or possible other applications where you think we might have used this?
There's a question from Christoph. Thanks for the nice presentation. Can you share a bit more on what kind of KPIs are available in the reporting?
Great question, Christoph. Thanks very much. Miles, actually, I wonder, do you have an example page of the different KPIs?
Yeah, sure, I can find one. As far as, like you said, when you create a report, it's based on a template. So in that template, you can pretty much create anything you want regarding use of Eigen tools. So if I go back and share the report, so I think you can see that now. So obviously here you can see you've got a KPI with, it's set up in a grid view. And then you've also got traffic lights, which are being powered based upon just a single value. And then in here, we're using basically the greater than, less than function of the status to power that. And then if I sort of come down here, you've got the text input macro. Sorry, I'm on the created version. I've got the text input macro. So as a user, you can come in, edit this. So that's another example. Also, those data tables that we saw early on in the webinar, you could easily embed one of those, and they'll also, as like Mario was saying, they are live as well. So if they were set into the live mode, they would constantly be grabbing the new data. So basically, when you set the report to a certain time frame, it will grab your query based upon that time frame. So it'll bring you, in that case, it'll bring you the support tickets against that month if you were running a monthly report. And yeah, so we've got bar charts, trends, do averages, anything you can think of, you better get it in the report. And also, if I bring another page up, for example, you could embed a live process flow diagram. So for example, if we bring up the separation overview, you could easily embed this graphic. And the great thing about sort of the reporting is that, take this page, for example, if I wanted to convert this to a template, all I would do is edit the page, and at the top of my page, I would just add in the template macro. And now this page is ready to generate reports, provided I've configured it and entered email addresses. I could then start sending this page out, easy as Larry.
That's very nice. So essentially, any page that's configured within the system can be converted into a report. That's what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the benefit of that is, like Murray was saying, is that if the engineer is off, anyone can run it. All you have to do is come up, select a date, and then click go. Once the report's been set up, all the calculations are running behind the scenes. You don't have to manually go and copy the data or grab all the month's data and calculate your averages. It's all done for you. So you just come along, click the button, and let it send all the emails out, and then just wait for the feedback from your colleagues.
That's a great point, Mars. And actually, there's another question here from Pavel. Thanks for this. The question is, can the reports be exported from the Eigen system and distributed externally? So, Mars, you kind of answered that already, because yes, they absolutely can. They can be sent via email and also sent to the mobile app that we have if you have it set up in your organization. So users can subscribe to reports and have them delivered to their mobile device straight away. So great questions. Any more questions from anyone? I hope they answered your questions. If they didn't, please let us know. So any questions on the screen presenter? I think I'd be interested to hear from the audience if there's any other use cases that for publishing information on shared screens. I think it's the sort of use case that's often overlooked because it's assumed that, oh, we can just stick a PowerPoint. But what you find is that actually then someone needs to go around installing that PowerPoint on every display and putting it in display mode. And then what happens is maybe the computer goes to sleep, or it gets an update or something and it breaks. The beauty of having it on a URL is it's very lightweight and everything is updated immediately.
I really like the fact that it can send out, you can keep communicating with your team and that everyone can get the same information at the same time, to be able to then, take action, or whether they need to, get updated, whether it's still COVID procedures or whether it's like a digital transformation project, and people need an update in terms of how it's going. I think there are squillion use cases.
I think that's right, Effie. It's a good point. And I think one of the beauties of it is it's so easy to author content on it, because actually all we do is take PowerPoint slides and convert them to graphics. People already know how to make those. It's not an online editing tool like, say, a WordPress or an internet that you need someone with specialist skills to update. It's super easy. They're probably already doing it, and all we're doing is just taking that content and publishing it.
For me, it removes the barrier between people that need to communicate and the barrier of technology, of some obscure system to be able to share with everybody. Here, we just create a presentation or put an image or a link to a website, and it immediately gets shared to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
A question here, follow-up, how do you provide Screen Presenter as a SaaS or on-premise?
Good question. And the answer is both. I guess if you like it, it can be installed on premise, but equally it can be published on the internet. We can provide it as SaaS from the cloud. All users need access to is the folder where they're going to store the files, and then a URL that they can access from the network. If it's in a cloud model, you'd probably want to make that put a login and keep it private so that only people within your organization can see the information. But it's a very easy setup. It's a lightweight tool. So thanks. Well, thanks for joining. I hope you found this useful and interesting. If you have any further questions, please email and we'll get back to you. This webinar will be available on demand afterwards as well. So if there's anyone you think would find it useful, please share it with them. And thanks very much. Hope to see you at the next one.